Yeah, just
thing is
let me just introduce the session. I just went live broadcast, and I wanted to record it. So I'm here with this is the Peeragogy in Action weekly podcast, and I'm here with Dilrukshi Gamaj of Sri Lanka, and I'm Charlotte Pierce. I am in the Boston area. I'm not showing my, well, we had the bandwidth turned down so we could hear each other, but welcome everyone who's watching. We are going to turn the video off and just run screen share so that we can hear each other. Dilrukshi, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Well, if we have trouble, I'll turn my bandwidth down again. But you said you had, where are the interns from that you were? I mean, what is the organization?
They're from several universities around Sri Lanka. It's not just one university. The idea is for the interns' perspective, for them to have some experience working with some collaborative projects, some exposure to international community, because they're so, when it comes to university things, they're so isolated. They are just narrowed their space to their university students. That's all. So taking their perspective to another level, I think this would be one of the great areas.
And what is their technological capability? I'm not saying expertise, but like, would they be able to get online?
Oh, I mean, in terms of technological things, I think they're far beyond our expectations. Most of them are like coding,
Okay.
The latest technological tools. I don't know. Most of them are into more, programmings and then internet. Yeah. So I don't think
they would have
technological aspects. The target interns are from the computer science background. All of them.
And would they have bandwidth, a good, like if we were to get on a Hangout with them, would they have reliable, internet connection?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know how would be. Perhaps some people might have good bandwidth, some may not. I haven't tried going with them in through internet, but I'm sure because we have quite a good bandwidth around Colombo area, so that of course I cannot guarantee, but we can try. I mean, it doesn't have to be all the way the synchronous communication. So
right, yeah, and it helps, but you're right, it doesn't have to be all the time. But yeah, and what's the issue with your bandwidth? Or I mean, is it bandwidth or what else? What is going on when we have trouble with you?
And
I'm sorry. Let me turn my my video down. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, let me just turn the video off because Joe might be here. Is that Joe?
It's me.
Oh, who is it?
Doug.
Doug, hi.
And you're here as a Peeragogy Globe.
Yeah, so are you.
Really?
That confused.
Yeah, you must have kind of bumped on, automatically or something as.
Do you? I'm just
Because
trying to think.
you're a moderator or administrator of the of the page. So
Okay, let me try.
Through that, then.
I'm going to try to rejoin, not through that. I'll be back.
Okay. And Darukshi, have you worked with these students before?
No, I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the university, the second, third years have a project that they have to do some internship somewhere in the company, or else it's some projects. So that's a requirement by the academic curricula. So some of them might be interested in taking international project. Not only this, I have another project which is one of my personal thing that I work with some of the Stanford students. Other than that, this would be one of the, I'll be, publishing few projects for them. One is pedagogy thing, another are my other entrepreneurship projects. But now in pedagogy thing, this is what I thought, like, handling while learning the concept behind pedagogy, they could, they are very capable of having, web interfaces and then the codings and then most of the technical stuff. So, so we could use them to build up a great site, and then according to our requirements, and then keep track of whatever we need. I don't know. Maybe you all can decide what are the requirements that we have, and also the main point is like now the pedagogy is not up to an organization level so far, right? We haven't gone that far, have we?
No, not with a formal organization. I mean, I think what we've all been kind of learning is a non-hierarchical structure and way of operating.
It doesn't have to be a hierarchy. I mean, going organization doesn't mean that we have hierarchy, but all at the same level, but at least because some sort of a structure where these are the days that we are going to have the active learners, these are the active members, and these are intermediate level members, and so far we don't have data behind us, right?
No, I mean as far as what kind of data what kind of data were you talking about?
The history data, for example. Let's say if the pedagogy has been doing some projects, what are the status of those projects, and then how far we have been successful, as a group, what did we target and what did we achieve. I mean, we can't be just, I mean, I don't see all the meetings, but to have a strategic plan and then work towards that plan while working with I don't know, how do I say, it's again going towards with a plan.
Yes, I think I know. You're breaking up a little bit, but I think I know what you mean. For those who just joined, I'm Charlotte Pierce, and we have Doug Breitbart and Gideon
Burton.
Burton. Sorry, with us. Thank you for joining. And we're just talking with our colleague in Sri Lanka about an internship program that she's in touch with that could help with some of the technical aspects of the Peeragogy project. So yeah, Dilrukshi, it's really not like any formal project that any of us, I think, have ever been on. So we don't have that data. I mean, we have some projects that we are using pedagogical patterns and principles in, and our experience with the project. But just like the interns, I think most of us have become familiar with this concept by just being involved with producing the handbook, or fleshing out some of the platforms. But I think now we met yesterday, 4 of us, and we with a kind of a mind to create some business structure, and we just kind of explored that. We didn't really set forth any make any decisions, but it's being non-hierarchical. It's everybody's a little bit reluctant to kind of go charging ahead and set up stuff. But Doug, are you there? Are you?
Yeah, I am. I think. First, can I ask how you pronounce your name, because I really don't want to do violence to it. Say again.
Dilrukshi.
Dilrukshi.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Part of this project, and part of the essence of this project, is that it really involved unlearning and abandoning a lot of the reflexive things that we do when people come together as default settings. That it's, by its nature and definition, it was self-aggregating, self-governing, and self-motivating. So it wasn't about enticing or inducing people to do things or manipulating them into doing things. It wasn't about sort of building a structure and they will come with a whole bunch of preconceived formalities, structures, rules, constraints, or dictates. It wasn't about a asserted leader. It was about what happens when a group of adults come together and sort out and figure out how to just work together without any of that. So the challenges that raises are really astounding. And a big part of the learning is the unlearning. A big part of that is, I really, if I were to give it language, I would say it's really about growing up to meet the challenges of a 3.0 world. It's about stepping up and owning your individual level of attentional investment and engagement. And in this context, it was a coalescence of people that has gone through some really interesting, dynamic, dramatic changes where, in the beginning, Howard Rheingold, who's sort of, somewhat of a godlike figure to those that got introduced to this universe through him, and he did that for a lot of people. Howard planted the initial stake in the ground, and he has 65,000 followers wherever he goes. So all sorts of people popped out of the world and came running. Like he created a center of gravity around an idea, and so there was a massive chaotic flurry of people disgorging their expertise, their credentials, their contributions, in just a massively overwhelming flurry of look at how smart we are, or I am, and then that sort of died down, and a large number of people evaporated once they had sort of given up the ghost of whatever it was they had to offer to beat their chest and claim brilliance and dominance and whatever. And then out of the remainder were a hardy band of folks that were somewhat less ego-driven. A few of us had projects that touched the area and domain that Peeragogy was speaking to, which was group learning, group learning and group self-determination. And so the center of the project became an extension of some of the work they were doing, Joe Cornelli and company, and Charlie Danoff. We've been sort of percolating along, sorting and sifting and looking to find our way to enough of a concrete coalescence to give this thing some legs in a 2.0 world way. And, the industrial frame that we come from says you have to be project driven, you have to be output driven, you have to be, deterministic, and it has to map to concrete, tangible return of some kind or generation of some kind and all of that. And the truth of the matter is that none of those things necessarily need be true unless we choose to make them part of this.
Do you find that you are looking for that kind of structure?
No, what I thought to have the technical things to be handled because so many people might wanting to join and to know the structure of it. For me, the first most thing was difficult to find the information, the whole thing behind of this Peeragogy thing. I saw the peeragogy.net, but that was a book. I wasn't ready to read the whole book because it wasn't my, it was the least priority. But I wanted to have something. If I'm a newcomer, I would want to know something. Few points with perspective. We say, this is the key points that we would like to sell to the crowd to attract or whatever. I mean, so
what that speaks to, and what we've sort of gravitated toward, and then gotten dispersed or distracted, and then gravitated toward, but we're working on. And it's sort of like the five blind men and the elephant as to how you get to this. But what you're really talking about in a pure collaborative context is onboarding. Like, how do we create a zero barrier to entry mechanism for people who have whatever spark of attentional interest in this project they have to enter, to engage.
That's right. And to easily access the information.
And to facilitate and for the project to facilitate and serve you in the way, and this I keep invoking this. I'm sure Charlotte's sick and tired of it, but it's sort of the concept of unconditional love applied to collaborative endeavor, which is, the object of the collective or the initiative is to facilitate that onboarding for you in the way you want to be facilitated, not in the way the project wants to facilitate you. So each individual comes to collaborative effort and engagement with a different set of skills, a different set of literacies, a different set of preferences, a different set of affinities for how they take in information and how they disgorge or share information. And it becomes the project's job or responsibility, if it wants to thrive and grow, it becomes the project's job or responsibility to figure out and provide a platform and mechanism for all of those, differences, regardless of those differences, for everybody to be able to play and contribute and engage. and in as easy a way as possible, that it doesn't have linguistic barriers. You need to learn a special language or a secret handshake. You need to skill up in a bunch of tools and platforms that you have never used before. There are lots of sort of tacit barriers to entry that people that are technologically fluent take for granted, that there are a lot of people out there that don't know how to play in this kind of space. It took me 3 or 4 attempts to get into this Hangout under my persona, as opposed to coming in as another Peeragogy Globe like Charlotte. And that's as a sophisticated user of Hangouts. Like, what about somebody who's never hung out before? So, we're wrestling with all of, it's a meta layer, and my whole thing is sort of the metacognition layer of this kind of group effort. Think of it as group metacognition. How do we all learn? How do we all come together? How do we all come up with shared protocols? And the truth of the matter is, you're here presumably because something sparked a level of curiosity, interest for you to invest the attentional time to be present, right? And that is the economy of the 3.0 world we're heading into, which is it's one of attentional energy. Like, if a human being gives you any attention, which could be checking out a page or clicking on something, if you're on the other end of that page, you have a responsibility to respond and provide value in exchange for that investment. And now the thing is, you're here, and what you're asking for and asking about is absolutely right on. The question is, would you be willing to help, right? Because everybody that gets here, there's an express and implicit invitation that you want to help. We welcome your participation and help. It's not, at this stage of the game, easy. It's not at this stage of the game transparent. We don't have the onboarding figured out. We don't have a lot of the entrance materials available and easily mapped so that you can find, an answer to this question or that question, or how to, or where, or what. We're very much like figuring that out and turning attention to that. One thread of those discussions is structure and organization, sort of the business, constructing a business frame for this, or organizational frame for this. One element is of figuring out, setting up the mechanism for accessing materials, historic materials and reference materials about the project, and sub-initiatives within it. Another is we're developing a pattern language for some of the processes that have surfaced through this. So there's lots of work. There's a core team. There's a much larger expanded universe of folks that I think are lurkers for the same reasons that the questions you're asking raise, which is, I find this interesting, and I check out a Hangout once in a while, and I'm, every once in a while there's an email or I follow a link, and and how do I play? So that's really the status and where we're at, and I'm going to stop talking.
Yeah, let's hear what's how do I spell it? How do I? Gideon.
Gideon?
Gideon. Okay.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome, by the way.
Yes, I met Charlotte at a prior Google Plus Hangout on Air, didn't I, Charlotte? Still there?
We don't know. She's in globe mode.
Yes, I am. Yes, you did. I had turned off my sound.
Yeah, I understand globe mode myself, having just recently run a Hangout on Air, a first try with my current students, and wow, having your attention split so many ways to solve so many problems. I've decided the next round I'm going to have one of my students be a producer.
There you go.
Hopefully handle a lot of that, so that I'm, can
Yeah,
That works, by the way.
we have quite a few, or we have several of us that can do this, but there seems to be like a fear factor sometimes for starting them. And Doug, have you ever started one?
Oh yeah, no, I've started a lot. I've played producer for a lot in terms of toggling people to the big screen and toggling them off and muting mics where people had dogs, children, and screeching in the background.
Well, sometimes I just don't show up, and then somebody else is like, well, who's going to start it? And so I just kind of wait, and pretty soon Charlie or Joe will start it.
Well, I actually put together a whole PowerPoint, a PowerPoint how to launch a Hangout on Air, because there are a lot of rabbit holes, like buttons that you think will invite people and do things that don't.
I know, and then exactly.
And so it's sort of a twisted path to open one and to actually get everybody you want in it.
Yeah. You know what Charlie's been doing is he's been doing this wrapper. Are you getting the wrapper?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's been sending it by email for some reason, but if it could be emailed and put on the Google Plus community, it would be great. The worksheet, this is another way. I put it in the chat, but he's put like the last 4 or 5 Hangouts on there, and there's always links to our Pirate Pad or our Authoria. So what do you think people that you, or like the interns, for example, what would they need?
First, they would need to collaborate with others, like the MOOC project that we started could be a good point for them, and also the Peeragogy handbook writing with latest tools would be one of the aspects that they can contribute. And yeah, that's and also what according to our requirements, they can make some the whole site, the Peeragogy site could be enhanced and improved with much more accessibilities and then the functionalities where we can find the archive discussions, and then
yeah, if people go on the YouTube channel, they can find a Hangout and watch it. They could even scrub through it just for kind of a quick impression, and then make comments below it. There's always a comment section, and if you select the comments to post to Google Plus also, they will have a higher likelihood of reaching someone who's been involved longer.
Okay.
That might be a good way. It's just like there's so many, there's dozens of them, that it's kind of hard to go back and say, watch this one or that one, but usually you can go to the event page and read comments or read the topic or see who is there. It does take a certain amount of initiative in that way. Does that seem like something they could do?
Yeah, right. So I'm always thinking as a business perspective. I'm really new to this concept, so I'm having this question. For example, what if I want to find out the discussion which we talked about as a project specifically? So am I to go and search for every little conversations that the page has, or else do you publish within a certain topic, or this is what the discussion is about?
Well, we do have the community on Google Plus. Is that accessible to you?
Yes.
Okay.
That's not the question. I'm sorry, my English is not clear. My question is, now today we have this meeting, and we are talking about something, right? So if we go to the future, and if somebody else want to find out what we talked about today, about the concept, so specifically, if they to find the video or the Hangout in the Google or else the YouTube videos, among all the YouTube videos, is there a way that they can find without looking at all the videos so far?
If they have, I mean, yes, you might take a combination of search terms like, see, Peeragogy, and Peeragogy. See if we can. It depends on the extent to which usually we have, see the notes that I've taken in the chat here, someone always, usually Joe or Charlie or me, will copy those and put them in the event, in the event page. But here's just by searching on Google Plus, I don't know if you can see the screen share, but I searched for Peeragogy and Dorukshi, and if they want to see something that you've been involved in, here are a number of the Hangouts, and also some, here's a comment stream from below one of the Hangouts. This is an event page. Let's see, they're mostly from the Hangouts, but
and then again, this concept is very much familiar with the Dave Corner's Rizzo CMOOC that I'm participating. The group of adults getting together and they themselves trying to learn something. The individuals, each and every individual make their own content. For example, I participate and I am the content. The skills and the skills and then the conversation that I bring into this session is the content for the others. So that's how others learn, and that sort of environment. Is it the same, or is it going beyond that?
Doug, did you kind of get what she was saying?
I think. I think each one of us, each one of us is the bearer of our contribution, if that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And at least in a pedagogy context, there isn't the hub and spoke, the old educational model, which is hub and spoke, the teacher's at the front of the room and the sole source.
Yeah.
And students are, it's teacher to student, one-to-one. But there isn't the collective learning community, co-learning community of the students as a learning community together with teacher as facilitator, which is really the 3.0 version of education. And in a pedagogy context, we default, some of us default to facilitation roles, but we don't have sort of a central facilitator. Everything is a product of the collective group. So in that context, if you turn the telescope around, each one of us, the more each one of us brings, contributes, and provides, the more the bigger the collective and communal contribution of the group as a whole in service to whatever the focus of attention and point of development is. So, the intern, the intern question, we're the deep end in the context of an intern an intern coming our way.
We're all kind of interns.
Because, yeah, we're on a certain level, we actually see ourselves as interns. We're interns in our own process. We're interns in group learning, which was the original Howard Peeragogy concept. And getting to your question, yeah, this is really oriented toward a group or collective self-directed, self-organizing learning exercise. And Howard's original vision, which is why the word handbook was invoked, was that we come together and we create a how to do that. Now, Charlotte, what is it, 2 years ago now? 2.5, 3?
December 2012 is when I joined.
Okay, so we're 2.5 years down the road, and we have a handbook, but I'm not sure how handbooky it is in terms of how to. We're still sort of wallowing around and sorting out how do people come together and play together, not being led. And that's real, that's really the ingredient that is missing from this equation. Everybody wants a mom or dad, because they take care of all of this other stuff. And if I have a problem or a question, I can go to them and they can just make it better. And in this particular exercise and engagement and project, there is no mom and dad. Each one of us has, by our presence and attention in the moment, full responsibility for steering and carrying this thing forward.
Go ahead. I was just riffing off your statement where I have this organization that I'm involved with for publishing, and it's a nonprofit, and it's a support organization for independent publishers. But I've actually, and I'm an officer on the board, but I have actually been able to apply some of the Peeragogy principles, because in that organization and it's benefiting that organization. So it's so hard to quantify. It's just like a kid growing up and the exposure that they have to different people. You don't really know how it realizes itself. But I've learned a ton about Hangouts and how to do them. I've been able to actually make some money doing that. So I don't know. It's kind of it's really hard to quantify. But I was just showing you on the screen, if you can see it. We have 1,000 members over 1,000 in our community now. And these people have come to this community because they like what the description says, which is they gravitate towards this. So those are people that any of your interns, if they join the community, can interact with. Any one of these people may, or several of them may have great value, and it may just be that, the one thing that interns could do would be just to start communicating with these people, because we don't hear from them really necessarily in our Hangouts and stuff. Just like say, what's your interest in pedagogy? If they did that, we would have an explosion of engagement, I think. And your interns would probably make some very, very valuable contacts and communications. You know, people love to know that someone in Sri Lanka, a student, a young person, is interested in engaging with the outside world, and people love to help them. I don't know. I mean, that's one benefit. I think everybody needs a benefit to be involved. You know,
That's right. So, okay, let's forget about the internet for me to learn. I would like to know now, we all gather and talk something. So, in our intention is to learn something. So, this space is open to learn something. So, I mean, pedagogy, I mean, today we see somebody, and if we start something, discussion, something serious, the next day, sometimes we wouldn't be seeing that person. You know, there's no hard and fast rule that we have to join, but still people on and off join and learn, right? So how this is, it's like, you know, you're learning in an unscaffolded situation. You're not structured, because we have been raised to learn in a situation where, you know, everything is structuredly given, and this is you know, it's totally out from what we have learned so far. It's totally different. So I'm trying my best to see what's going on and what
yeah, that's
I
why
can.
the documentation is so important, and it's I think the notes that we take in these hangouts are just priceless, because, you know, people say stuff that is just right spot on, and
Yeah,
you know.
and you know, just about that practice, you'll notice the chat. You know, the chat is, you know, running continuously, and if, you know, somebody's talking and contributing stuff, I'll type, and if I'm talking, Charlotte will type, and that practice is, you know, came from a guy named George Poor, who had an idea for something called chaotic chat. And the idea of chaotic chat was that we so often have conversations where, instead of really providing time to think and reflect on what somebody said, and instead of paying really real attention and being 100% present with what other people are saying, we're busy thinking about the next thing we're going to say and all of that, and just to introduce an element of mindfulness into the exchange. Mm-hmm. And out of that premise came a brief but interesting experiment in this practice, and out of that came my, you know, doing what Charlotte has been doing, thank God, because usually my contributions don't get caught at all, so it's sort of interesting to see that happen.
Well, it's always a challenge for me to kind of like listen to you, Doug, and then figure out what the nugget is. It's not that it's not clear. It's just like there's this quality of speaking that you have. It's really cool, and it's but just distilling it is a challenge.
Yeah. So
it takes time to understand.
but the act of transcribing and capturing that, we save that, we make that accessible to people in the Hangout and people at large. It enables people to go back and read stuff and think about stuff, and so that's by definition, that's an asynchronous process. Mm-hmm. And if you think about, you know, our interaction in the context of a project like this, coming together synchronously is a really, really high expenditure of attentional energy and value. Getting a group of people to make a decision to prioritize this hangout right now, this minute, and to give each other undivided attention for however long we're doing this, that's a really expensive demand on a group of people's attention, with the added vector of all together at the same time. And the asynchronous part, which is I pop in on a text that a paper that they're currently publishing tomorrow to make some last-minute comments and throw some wrenches in the works if I can, because I like doing that. You know, doing that asynchronously enables me to contribute even if I'm not there in a synchronous hangout when they were all doing key drafting or discussion of what gets kept and what gets taken out and whatever. And so you're right, it's challenging because the cast of characters is variable. Where people are going to be when and how is variable. It's, you know, just about every fixed point that we're used to having, like, you know, here's a circulation list and we're going to meet every Tuesday, blah, 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 and, you know, all of that structural stuff that keeps us in line in an industrial frame way, you know, if that's taken out, 2.5 years later, we're, you know, inching along, but we're inching along not doing it that way. The question is, how do we do this better? How do we do this differently? To maximum effect and output and value creation. And value creation may be tangible and product-based, but it may also be in methodologies and how-tos and practices that are derived from the affordances of all this technology and capability rather than the other way around, us working in service to them.
I think this regular Monday thing, I agree, Doug, is, I mean, it's been kind of an anchor, and then the handbook, just producing the handbook has been a focusing point too. But how to distill some of those threads that are more dynamic than others and work on them, enhance them. I don't know if is that a good thing, or should we just have lots of different threads and some go somewhere and some don't?
Well, you know, are you familiar with the concept of pull?
Pull?
Like pull, as a push as opposed to pull. It comes out of business and marketing land, but the concept of pull in this context is that if I have a project or an idea and it really is compelling, then it's going to generate its own pull, its own center of gravity in terms of attracting other people to work on it, contribute to it, get involved. Right? Howard Rheingold has pull just for being Howard Rheingold and for everything he's done and everything he's been the lightning rod and catalyst for over his career. You know, he got us together. He's no longer the center of pull in terms of the Peeragogy project. The project itself is now exerting its own pull, and it's got, you know, half a dozen people for whom it generates enough pull for us to sort of stay in the game. You know, and that whole idea of strong ties, weak ties. It's sort of like, you know, the greater the pull that something generates. So how do you do that? You know, how do you identify what's going to generate pull? Because it's in the result, it's in the number of people that come running to say, I'd like to help, I'd like to contribute, I'd like to be involved, I'd like to be attached, I'd like to engage. And, you know, so that idea of many threads, it's sort of lacking outside dimension and boundaries, which it has. You know, the things that generate the most pull have gotten the most attention. And that's been an organic process. The handbook is sort of like a big pull item. It's been an anchor that everybody can realign around as a lightning rod and get
and different conferences too. Like when we do a paper for a conference, we're usually like if I mean anyone can have their name on the paper if it's kind of an unspoken participation level. You know, if you show up at a few of the Hive editing sessions for the paper, your name sort of appears there, or you put it there and nobody takes it off. Or, you know, it's just like, you know, I've never been disappointed if my name isn't on a paper. But it is a pull. It is a pull. You know, I like to be involved. I like to be
Acknowledged
effective
and recognized.
and acknowledged for being effective. So yeah, you know, that's a good one. And Dorukshi, if any of the interns want to be involved in one of these papers, I mean, sometimes Paula is going to one in Mexico this week that we prepared a paper for, and you know, that's, you know, their name can be on there, even if they just come on and say, you know, I don't understand what you guys are doing, and then they get more involved, and you know, somebody who's doesn't have a clue can be just as useful as someone who's thinks they know everything. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good question. Where when can I find out this? So that's my again question. So we have all the projects going on, and where do we find the information? Where do we find the drawing info?
Well,
whom to
on the
contact
community or on our, we have a Peeragogy project calendar, Google Calendar, and I think I said I was going to invite you to that, but you can create events, or let me see if you're on it. I mean, it's just a way to, you can put the deadline for applying for a conference or submitting a paper or something. Rukshi. And Gideon, did you want me to put you on there too?
Sure.
So if you, what is your Gideon, a walking tiger?
Waking tiger.
Waking tiger. Walking tiger. Pouncing tiger. Yes, so you guys have been invited now. And so if you hear about something, you can put it on there. And I mean, it should, I guess, our just general rule of thumb is that it have, I mean, we did a paper for pattern language, open education, open knowledge. What is ISTE? Anyway, you see, oh. That's in Philadelphia, June 26th. I don't know if we did a paper for that. I don't think so. But we did one for the pattern language. What is PLOP? Pattern Language Open Project or something?
Yep. Hello, Becky.
We did a paper for pattern language, open education, open knowledge. What is IS? Oh, yeah, somebody's got the Hangout playing. Oh, that's in Philadelphia, June 26th. Becky, I'm going to mute you. I think you have the Hangout, actually, the recording playing. Okay. So close your other windows, and then you can speak without being echoed. So did Gideon and Dorukshi, did you get the invitation for the
Calendar?
I'm looking at it now. And
okay.
is it just the community of people on your Google Plus community that are contributing?
No, it's anyone who asks for access, basically. I don't think we have a restriction. It didn't want to make it public because we didn't want it to get chaotic.
Right.
But, you know, when we prepare a paper for one of these things that's on it, we, that information goes into the Hangouts, that the dialogue about that goes into the Hangouts and into the community, and email discussions, and the pirate pad, which I put on the chat there too. So I don't know, Doug. What was the other thing? The hack pad, right? Is that hack pad?
Yep.
Do you have that link? Occasionally we go and circulate these links
Yeah.
that we've been using.
Let me look.
Yeah, I got the calendar now.
Okay, so Becky, if you want to unmute yourself, if you've closed your other windows, you can introduce yourself.
Oh, you're muted again.
So click on your picture, and then it'll give you an option for unmuting.
You're unmuted. Oh, you're muted again. You're toggling. Now it's gone. You're here.
Okay. I'm Becky Coleman, and I just jumped in because Doug and I've been over this territory a couple of times, and I kind of wanted to question him about whether we have come any closer to being able to utilize the Bitcoin philosophy in organizing the structure of this business model, this hierarchy. That is something that's held us back in so many different ways in so many different forums that I'm interested in trying to find a way to build a model that does not have a leader and that doesn't depend on having somebody in charge at all times.
You know, I think the two ingredients. I think the two ingredients that map to being able to achieve that is the vision behind holacracy, which is really a non-hierarchical, non-leader-based governance system, management system, and vision for organizational, for collaborative and collective action. And the idea is that you have the different component parts and ingredients of the enterprise, whatever it is, defined as holons, where each holon has a designated person for incoming and a designated person for outgoing. And when there's something that arises as a point of need or demand or energy, demanding attention or resource or support or commitment or other, that it sort of propagates out holonically through the organization. And holacracy provides a management schema and structure. And there really isn't a leader in that context. And the word leader, is sort of the concept of leadership and the meme of leader. In and of itself is really rooted in, once upon a time, way back when, the biggest, the strongest, and the most powerful, the guy, the testosterone guy that, got everything that he wanted the way he wanted it because of brute force. And, that maps all the way up to the industrial model. And the concept of leadership presumes that there are people that need to be led. And all of that, the whole construct of that setup, which is power and authority and control oriented, doesn't need to be. We've been programmed to it. We take it as a given, but it doesn't need to be. It's not a cast in stone kind of deal. We can choose not to do that. So yeah, the concept in a holacracy model is that you have spheres of responsibility, business, productive endeavor, engagement, etc., that have been distributed, and the people in each one of those spheres manage that and take care of it themselves, and work collaboratively and collectively. And at the interface between that and the other moving parts, when there's friction or an issue or a need or whatever, coordination, there's a mechanism for doing that. There isn't a higher authority. There isn't a leader in the traditional context. In terms of the Bitcoin thing, extrapolating out of Bitcoin but tied to the underlying technology of Bitcoin is this concept of these secure encrypted packets for exchange purposes that I can send you some, and it's the essence of peer-to-peer plus extraordinary security, complete anonymity and privacy, and what the whatever the thing is that's being exchanged. And the promise of that, the potential for that, is that it provides a mechanism for enabling the exchange of information, the exchange of things of value, and that can be monetary, but it can also be other things, with comfort and security that you can do that privately when and if and as needed and appropriate. And I have my own sort of hobby horse about the concept of privacy, and why that's such a big deal and why that's even needed, because it seems like the only reason for people to be preoccupied with privacy is because they're either doing something wrong they shouldn't be doing, or they're doing something that they have huge judgments about, and the issue isn't what they're doing, it's the judgments that they're applying to it. So if we tackled the judgment issue and we tackled the thou shalt not issue in terms of people just doing the right thing, privacy becomes truly an obsolete concept. So I'm a big open source kind of person in my thinking about all of that.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've been involved for so long that it's several of us together that we really like each other. I have never met Doug in person, but I've met Joe Corneli, but it's just by virtue of listening, and I can't recall a really bad argument we've ever had.
Never.
No.
It's not part of the deal because it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't, and there's differences maybe, but and there's challenges in understanding each other, but it's not like we blame each other for it or something.
Yeah, there isn't the need to be right. It's really pure, non-competitive, non-adversarial, 3.0 collaboration and communication and exchange. And when you take all that, that predator competitive stuff out,
Mm-hmm.
It really enables people to, focus on focus on what the real stuff is, what's really important, what are the real challenges, what are the real needs, what are the real imperatives, and it's a lot of wasted energy, resource, and attention to fight and to go into adversity, and all of the destructive stuff comes out of old competitive memes. They served us, and it was needed for us as a species to get where we've gotten to, but the truth is they're not needed anymore. We need to evolve to a collaborative, common-centered, sustainable approach, and that means no person gets left behind, no barrier to entry for anybody to participate and engage, and that we're responsible for taking care of all of us. And that's independent of whether all of us are capable of contributing to what's required to take care of them. So anyway, and I think those are core values that everybody that has touched this project, and Becky, everything you and I have been involved with and connected around, have in common.
Well, I just I have a lot of reading to do, and I haven't met everybody involved in the Peeragogy group, so I'm going to just back out now. I just had a burning question I had to get out there, and so.
Well, I hope I answered it.
You did, and I'm sorry to have intruded. I know it's a
No, this is a
recorded session, but
you're an asset, Becky.
Well, thank you, and I'm going to read up, and I haven't read any of the handbook yet, so I'm going to go look around. And thanks for letting me join in.
You can do it
I'll talk
from
to you
any
later.
direction.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
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 So we should probably wrap it up. But this has been a terrific session, and I hope our less vocal members have been able to benefit.
Yeah, I've appreciated getting to know you and hearing what you're up to. And I'm also going to spend more time looking at your handbook and send my students to some of this. So thank you.
Yeah, and even if they want to start a Google document and share the link, and we'll kind of come on, and that's been one of the funnest parts for me, is when we are all kind of swarming on a editing project or a paper, and making comments, and it's cool. It's just cool.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. If you want to set up a Hangout and do a sort of coalescence of pedagogy folk with students, most of the pedagogues that are sort of more proactively involved rather than less would probably be game to show up and jaw with your students.
Great.
Yeah, just ping us, directly. You can email me or call me. I like to do that kind of stuff. It's just whether it gets to my consciousness is another thing.
I'll take you up on that, and I appreciate that. I think I will. So I'm going to leave now, but I'll follow up and see you later.
Okay, good. Thanks, Gideon.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone. We'll see you again on Monday, May 18th? 18th at 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern Daylight Time for the Peeragogy in Action